Along the 2 line, and as you can see, trains are rolling along. It has been a rough week, as you said, though. 2 separate incidents of copper wire thieves have brought the lines to a standstill. Now Sound Transit is trying to figure out what it needs to do next.
You know, we spend a lot of our time and energy and our federal budget worrying about the issue of terrorism. And by the way, there are good reasons for that. There are people that are in league with foreigners and or operating as foreign agents in the United States of America that probably are plotting to do some kind of sabotage or kill innocent civilians. And that can have devastating impacts on our country, not just in the damage of the individual attack, but in the response to that, the policies that come as a consequence of that, and of course the damage on the psyche of the American people based on the fact that you no longer feel safe in your own country. However, one of the things that we don't focus on, and we probably should highlight a little bit more, is the fact that these petty criminals that are allowed to run rampant in left-wing cities can sometimes have the effect of terrorism on our infrastructure. And a perfect example of this is what you just heard right there. In Seattle, where copper theft has gotten so out of control that the train lines have been stalled and shut down completely due to the fact that the wires needed to run the electricity to these trains are just missing. Petty thieves are taking them repeatedly, and guess what? Now the feds are finally looking into it, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Tuesday morning, passengers were ferried by bus as service was stopped between Overlake Village Station and Redmond Technology Station, impacting the 2-line trains. Sound Transit says the stoppage lasted for several hours. On Saturday, a cable theft was reported at Wilburton Station overnight. That disrupted service between South Bellevue and Spring District Station.
So what you just heard right there is that train stations were shut down on these lines during a morning commute. People had to be shifted to buses, and the reason for this shift in commute is due to the fact that copper wire theft has gotten completely out of control in and around this area. And this is one of the things that people don't think about when they're passing dumbass criminal justice legislation that says stealing, that's no big deal. In fact, people who steal are kind of like Aladdin. They're innocent Baba angels who didn't do nothing wrong, and they're just trying to feed their starving family. Therefore, we should just let that go. Therefore, we should just pretend that that's no big deal. You guys will recall when I appeared on Tim Pool's Culture War with Emma Vigeland, and I pointed out that 30% of the retail theft arrests that are going on in New York City are the same 327 people, and her immediate response, like the NPC that she actually is that those are the most desperate people.
What you're trying to do is incapacitate criminals, because the same criminals are often reoffending. You brought up shoplifting earlier. You can actually pull up an article to find out that the same 300 people in New York City represent a third of the shoplifting arrests total for a single year.
Probably because they're incredibly impoverished and they need to find a way to actually sustain their livelihoods in this country.
Ah, yes, their lives are so sad that we should let them steal from small businesses across the city, big box stores, drive those businesses out of the neighborhood, creating urban decay, and we should all suffer the consequences because Emma Vigeland and the overprivileged progressives don't want to hold criminals accountable. Well, guess what? The West Coast, the left coast, way ahead of us on the not holding criminals accountable thing. We've seen criminal justice reforms passed in California, passed in the Seattle area, and these are the consequences of those reforms. These are the consequences of saying no big deal, of hiring woke district attorneys who don't want to prosecute anyone for anything, of putting into power mayors who call Black Lives Matter riots and declaring an occupied zone that is declaring itself a foreign country the summer of love.
I want to just get a clear sense of this, though, Mayor. Why do you believe the president chose to talk about domination in the face of what's happening, not just in your city, but in many instances when it comes to what the remedy is for the unrest in the country right now? What do you think this is about for him?
I think it shows a complete lack of understanding of why people are in the street. They're in the street fighting a system of domination, and he doesn't understand that. And his response is always one that's bellicose and militaristic, but he doesn't honor the military in that way either, as you've seen from the line of generals that have disputed him. So I think he says dominate because he is totally does not understand what is happening in America, and he is desperately trying to start the old fights and the old divisions that put him in power in the first place.
How long do you think Seattle in those few blocks looks like this?
I don't know. We could have the summer of love.
Our public infrastructure, specifically our mass transit systems, the very same systems that these left-wingers advocate for, end up being shut down. And again, this has not been the first time that this has happened in the Seattle area, where copper wire thieves have shut down this critical infrastructure. And by the way, one time is enough. Again, we did reporting on Los Angeles where they had such extreme copper wire theft in and around an area by the highway that a neighborhood was completely blacked out in the dead of summer, and the pictures are absolutely crazy. And by the way, the blackout ended up extending to the lights on the bridge so that the drivers were driving in the dark. But apparently, we're not supposed to worry about this. Apparently, we're not supposed to worry about copper wire theft in the city of Oakland that shut down crucial traffic lights. We're just supposed to replace it with a stop sign. I guess we're supposed to tie like some kind of wind turbine to boost these trains across, maybe have a bunch of people drag them across, because we can't have first world infrastructure because left-wing progressives have decided that criminals are innocent Baba Angel Aladdins who didn't do nothing wrong. And again, they're just trying to feed their starving family. Think about the wealth distribution that happens after they steal this copper wire theft.
Yeah, this is why we can't have nice things. It's disappointing. I don't know. Are they going to put shielding in or something? How are they going to stop that?
Yeah. So oftentimes on this channel, I'm very critical of those of you in the comments and other content creators who say they voted for it or you voted for it, therefore you deserve it, because what we actually end up seeing represented by the local news media most of the time is people who definitely didn't vote for this, or people who are victimized by vicious, violent crimes and are obviously not deserving of those actions. That being said, they just interviewed two individuals right here, and this may be the exact attitude distilled into a beverage that is served up to you at a bar that is currently being looted in the Summer of Love 2.0, and you are just supposed to take this, drink it down, and pretend like it's normal. And that's exactly what these people are doing. The first guy's like, oh, it's disappointing. I mean, sometimes you have a transit system that functions like a first world country, and other times what ends up happening is that criminals steal the copper wire, and you're just disappointed in that. Again, what needs to happen in this particular case is not for you to say, I don't know how we can secure this area. How could we possibly prevent copper wire thieves from stealing the copper wire from our critical infrastructure? The answer to that question is hold them accountable. Elect politicians that are actually going to fully fund the police department and arrest and track these individuals down, send them to jail, because these are serious acts. Again, if you stole this copper wire with intent to harm the United States of America or the city for political reasons, that would be called terrorism against infrastructure. But apparently, you're just supposed to accept this, smile at the local news camera, and pretend like it's no big deal. And the next guy that they interview, no better.
I'm just hoping the service gets a little better. Hopefully, I know it's just like, it just opened up pretty recently, so hopefully, they iron out the kinks quicker, I guess.
Look, I know this guy is a civilian. I know that he's not somebody who has a platform or anything of the sort, so I don't want anything to be misconstrued as me punching down or whatever the dumbass lefties end up saying about this type of commentary. But hey, guy that they're interviewing right here, the reason why this station was shut down for hours is not because it's new and they're trying to work out the kinks of the system. Someone stole the copper wire. Criminals who have been allowed to run rampant in the city of Seattle, the city that you live in, have damaged the infrastructure where you live. This is not something that a few tweaks in the engineering is going to fix. These are criminals destroying your infrastructure, and you pretending like these are normal things that occur. That's not normal. That's really strange. That's unusual. That is atypical. Again, this is not what a first world country should have to deal with, but your city has said that the criminals are above everyone else, so now you're talking about it like, oh, the signaling system broke. Now you're talking about it like there was something wrong with the track and they delayed service, when that's not the case. Again, someone stole the copper wire. The power was cut off, not due to it being new and it being a glitch or something of the sort. A human being, a criminal with criminal malicious intent, stole the copper wire to sell it. That is why you're taking the bus and or walking. This is not just a product of, oh, well, new system. What are you gonna do? I mean, what kind of place place doesn't have criminals, possibly drug addicts, stealing the copper wire to such an extent that the train shut down for hours. I mean, name me a first world city that doesn't have this issue. And I need to make something clear to you, guy. This is not normal. Almost every first world city in the entire world doesn't have this issue. You've never heard of copper wire being stolen to such an extent in Japan, in Tokyo, and shutting down their rail system. So maybe, just maybe, you should think a little bit more about what you present to the local news media. Again, it might be too harsh. I might be going a little bit too hard on this guy, but the fact is, he deserves it. I'm sorry. The Seattle people featured in this 100% deserve it, unless they got another interview where somebody is a little bit better in what they're actually saying.
Meanwhile, the King County Sheriff's Office is teaming up with federal law enforcement, is now investigating the thefts as larceny. They're asking anyone with any information to come forward.
So the Kings County Sheriff's Department says that they're working with the federal government because this is a crime involving infrastructure and they're looking at larceny charges. But then we get this very awkward statement from their office, and I find this to be absurd. And maybe you're going to have to listen to it a little bit slowly to understand, but if you don't get it on first play, I'll explain it to you.
The sheriff's office is reminding the public that stealing anything that messes with infrastructure, especially things like stop signs, turn signals, can lead to felony charges.
So the statement that should have been issued by the Kings County Sheriff's Department is that stealing copper wire is something that we are going to investigate seriously. We are going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. It should not be a message that says, hey, criminals, hey, thugs that we've allowed to run rampant and steal copper wire out of everything. If you do it to infrastructure, then you possibly may be eligible for felony charges. Then we might take it seriously. Then it might be an issue. But you know, if you continue to loot private businesses and homes and whatnot of their copper wire, that's not going to be taken all that seriously. Again, what a weirdly specific statement for an ongoing problem in your city that you failed to address, and now it's gotten to such a point where these people feel emboldened to steal the copper wire straight from your train stations, and to such an egregious extent that they end up shutting down the power to the entire station, making the trains not be able to run, and you're going to say, okay, infrastructure, little bit too far.
Twice in 1 week, what is Sound Transit doing to stop this kind of thing from happening again?
Now, I know I said that this was not the first time that this happened, but I didn't realize until just now that it was 2 times in the same week that somebody stole enough copper wire in order to shut down these stations. And now we get the question, which is, what is the transit agency doing in order to address this?
Well, first and foremost, they say they have upgraded security. They've increased patrols along all of the line. This as they work to what they call a long-term solution.
So yeah, the long-term solution, in case anybody's curious, is prosecuting the copper wire thieves. Now, of course, they end up going on to talk about how we're going to get the expansions of this light rail train system, and that expansion is going to be completed in one part by 2035. All the dates are completely out of whack. They're ridiculous, but they're what you can expect from a government project. But the thing is, we are used to these being delayed by endless environmental regulations and permitting requirements and federal regulations. But in this particular case, what's killing the project is the fact that people are stealing everything that's not nailed down, and even the stuff that is being nailed down is being stolen, and we're not actually seeing active prosecutions of these individuals. And the police, the sheriff's department, is so inept in doing their job. They're telling people if they're gonna steal copper wire, please don't do it from infrastructure, because A, we won't catch you, but if we do catch you, we may have to accidentally initially charge you with the felony, which I'm sure will be pled down to nothing, and you will be released back onto the streets after presumably you're allowed to steal copper wire from the jail system that we throw you into. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts about this particular incident. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is Seattle done? Is they over with? Are they over with? Again, all your thoughts down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute madness in Seattle. Till next time.